Hi everyone and welcome to my very first tutorial. So if you already follow me on social media, you might already know, but up until about a year ago I used to be a primary teacher and I gave that up to pursue my art and photography business. But I've been missing the teaching a little bit lately, so I thought I might get back to my teaching roots a little bit and start doing a few tutorials. Okay, as Easter's coming up soon, I thought that I would start off with a cute little bunny for my first tutorial. This one is a grey bunny because I know when I started off on my coloured pencil journey, they are quite expensive, particularly if you're getting good quality ones, and if you're wanting to buy loads of colours, it does add up. So I thought I'd start with a grey rabbit because you need less colours for that. I'm just going to be using lots of different greys today. Now this is my first tutorial, so please bear with me a little bit, but let's get started. So I have included in the description a list of all the materials we'll be using and also the line drawing that I've used. As you can see, I've already drawn it out on my paper. So first thing I'm going to do is I've drawn my line drawing out, but at the moment these lines are too dark because we don't want them showing through any of the pencil. So as I go along, you'll see the bits that we're drawing, I'm going to just dab it out a little bit to make them fainter. We still want to see them so that we know why we're drawing and making sure that everything is in scale, but like this one's way too dark at the moment. If you've got some light bits in our rabbit, we've got some white around here, we don't want those dark lines showing through. So first we're going to start off around the eye area up here. I often like to start with the eyes, not everyone does, but it's always quite a good place to start. So I've already started to rub out a few lines, but I'm just going to take my rubber and I'm going to start dabbing away to get rid of some of that dark area. So I use a putty rubber. If you haven't got one, normal rubber is absolutely fine. So for all the different materials I'm using today, they can all be substituted for other ones. You do not have to use the same brand, but if you'd like to, obviously you can, and they're all listed below. Fab. So I've got rid of the really dark bits. I can still see where the lines are, and I might have to rub out some areas as we go through a little bit. So I've put the reference picture linked in the description, but also you can probably see it on screen now. So I'm going to start with this eye, and to start with I'm going to go around the outside defining the shape in black. Do not worry if it looks a bit dark to start with. Once we start blending in the different colours, it will soon quieten down a little bit. So I've sharpened my pencil already. I'm going to go in with this dark line here. Some of this will be covered up slightly with the fur once we start adding it in. But I'm going to go across the top, goes into a little bit of a straight line, around here. And then we've got the curve of the actual eyeball, coming down to the bottom part, which will be covered a lot with the fur at the end. So there's my line. Now I'm going to start doing that outline for the lightest part because we obviously don't want to be colouring that in at the moment with the dark colours. So this is my lightest part, and that won't just be left white, we will be going back in with colours after, but for the moment that bit I'm going to kind of leave alone. So I'm going to do this nice dark line here again. As you can see, it's really dark around the bottom of this eye. I apologise if there's ever any noise going on. I don't really think this through. It's half term at the moment, or Easter holidays, and it's lovely weather today, so there's a lot of kids outside playing. Okay, so I've gone through with the black. I like to use the Faber-Castell Polchromos pencils for my drawing. So here's one of the warm grey ones. My black's a bit used now. So I've gone around with the black to start with. Now I'm going to go in with some of the warm grey 6. If I can find it. There it is. So now I'm going to go in with the warm grey 6 for the middle part of the eye. So as you can see, there is a lighter bit up at the top, which I'm going to try and leave alone as well. And there's a bit of a reflection in this eye. So there is a bit of a lighter grey around the edge, so I'm going to try and leave that alone for the moment. I've got a shape in it. Okay, next I'm going to go in with a Payne's Grey. Now Payne's Grey is a lovely dark grey, but it's kind of got a bit of a bluish tint to it, which is always perfect for the eye and for any dark areas. So now I'm going to do the lightest bit towards the bottom of the eye. Now it's still quite dark here, so I'm going to be using the warm grey 5 for that. This part here. And I'm only going to lightly go in with it, doing a bit of circular motions up to that light area again. And I'm actually going to use this to blend over the middle as well, so there's no sharp lines. Fab. And now I would like an even lighter colour for just blending towards the light bit, and I'm going to use a cold grey 3 for this middle part here. And I'm actually going to blend it out to this corner part. And I think I'm actually going to go down this bottom bit as well. Fab. So for the moment, for the light part, I'm going to use just a white over the top. We will be changing that, but just to keep it nice and light. And then for the rest of the eye, I'm just going to blend over the top with a cold grey 1. Often when you're doing coloured pencils, they kind of look a bit grainy to start with after the first layer, so I like to blend out with a lighter colour to kind of blend those colours a little bit and stop the graininess. Okay, so there's our first one. Now I'm going to go back in with a slightly darker Payne's Grey again, and I'm going to work through these middle parts around the edges, and we'll be going back in with the black in a minute. I'm going to go around the middle here where it's darker. It's actually quite dark down here at the very corner, so I'm going to work in there a little bit as well. And now we're starting to get a bit of an eye going. So for the lightest part, I'm actually going to go in with the cold grey 1 again. I'm just going to blend that across there. Because it's actually very rare that you kind of get a pure white in drawing, there's often different colours in there. I'm also actually going to go in that top corner with a cold grey 1. Okay, now I'm going to work back in with my black. Again, building those really dark bits. I am actually going to do the middle part of the eye as well. And then blending out to the top side of the eyeball. Come round and down from here. And I am actually going to do thin line going up. This will be blended in with what you can see of the eyelid in a bit. Could do with my pencil being a bit sharper, but my sharpener at the moment is giving up a little bit, so this is kind of as sharp as it's letting me go. Just a bit of a shame. And we're going to go around the top here. And you can actually see the top part where the eyelid is kind of goes straight before the eyeball comes down. And I'm going to actually extend that dark bit a little bit past, ready for when I do the eyelid. Okay, there's the dark kind of where the water line is here. I just fill that in. Fab. Now, when I do eyes, particularly the dark bit, I'm going to go in now with a dark indigo, which is a really dark blue colour just to add a bit more depth. Here I'm going to add it to the darkest parts. And then just to blend in that bottom part where it's lighter again, I'm going to go back over with the warm grey 5 and blend it up into the darkest. Okay, so now we're going to work on the lighter part of the eye, and there's kind of a bit of a reflection in this reference photo of what looks like the sky, so there is a bit of blue in there. So I'm going to use the ultramarine, or light ultramarine, sorry, for the Polchromos pencils again. And I'm just going to very lightly in a circular motion add that to the top part of this light part on the eye where you can see it in the reference photo. I don't want it to stand out looking too blue, just want to add a bit of a hint of colour to it. And I'm going to blend that down a little bit so it doesn't just look like a line. There we go. And now I'm going to go over that same area with the white just to blend that in a bit. Just currently look a little bit murky as well because it's blended in with the grey next to it. Okay, fab, that looks good. So now I'm going to go with the Payne's Grey and add in those little details. So you can see the slight line that goes across the light part. I'm actually going to extend this dark part slightly as well into the white area because I think I've gone a bit too far in. And I'm going to take a little bit off the top of it and off the bottom here. Taking it a bit far into the eyes and take a bit off there. We'll add a little bit of black in there in a minute just to make it look a bit more dark, sorry. There we go. So there is actually a bit of a reflection of a line across the middle, so I'm going to add that in as well. Fab, now I'm going to add that black to this middle bit here because I can't really see on the reference picture, but the pupil would be in this area here. Fab, so I'm going to leave that eye like that for the moment. I might come back in later and add a bit more detail when I get around there with the fur. Okay, now there is obviously the other eye in here. You can't see it much in the picture, but we're going to add that in right now as well. So I'm going to get rid of some of that pencil around that area. Sorry if the tripod's a little bit shaky. I might have to invest in another one if I carry on doing these. Okay, so I'm going to go and just do the outline. This one's very dark, so I'm going to do a black outline of the eyeball. And most of this is going to look quite black. I'm also going to do the outline here, which will be covered a bit by fur. There is only a tiniest bit of light in this one. Try and make it so it's not just like a semicircle. There we go. I'm going to add in some Payne's Grey to that, and I'm just going to go over that whole area that I've just done dark in Payne's Grey as well. And then afterwards I'll go over it in the dark indigo as well. And then the light area I'm going to go in with some white to start with. And then, it looks a bit too light at the moment, so I'm going to go in with the cold grey one. And blend that out to the rest of the eye. Fab, that's looking okay. I think it needs to be a little bit darker though. So I'm going to go back in with the black again. There we go. Fab. Okay, there's the eyes done. I'll probably go back and add a little bit more detail to them later when we get there. But next up, I like to work when I'm doing the faces. After I've done the eyes, I tend to head towards the fur near the nose. So that's why we're going to start on this one. So we're going to rub out this part, and then we're probably going to work our way up the head and then around the cheeks. Okay, so when you're doing fur, the most important thing, apart from the colour, is thinking about the fur direction or the hair direction. So for this rabbit, because it's grey, I've taken the element of choosing the right colour out. There's going to be a lot of obviously different greys, so there's not quite the same mixing of colours to make the right hair colour. So that element of it is gone, but it's going to depend a lot on the direction of the fur to make it look realistic. Because if we do the direction wrong, it'll either end up looking 2D and very flat, or it'll just end up looking weird. And don't be afraid if you made a slight mistake with the hair direction to just rub out and start again. Especially from the first layer, it is relatively easy to rub out and to be able to go over the top. So I'm going to start with the nose. I'm going to do like I've been doing before, using the putty rubber to rub it out. I'm going to start with this part here. So as you can see, there is actually white on the nose there, but first I'm going to go in with just the black for the nose, and I'm just going to literally go over that line. We'll build this up later, but I just want the line so I remember where it is. There we go. And later I'm going to make this line thicker, and when I work on the hair underneath, that's when that bit will start looking a bit better. But at the moment I just want it there as like a reference where the nose part is. So the first part on this is the white bit on the nose. Now when you're doing white on animals, you don't actually need that much of a white crayon. Most colours that you think are white aren't actually white. So if you have a reference picture and you hold up, I don't have a piece here, a white piece of paper next to it, that's a really good indicator of whether you're actually looking at what is true white or a slightly grey colour. So I have got the white pencil, we'll be using that as well, and it's often really good for blending out to use the white. But for this little white bit here, we'll actually be using quite a lot of greys, just to build it up and make it look a bit more realistic. I'm going to start on the white area around the nose here. Now instead of going in with the white, the first colour I'm actually going to go in with is the cold grey one, and I'm going to be using that to kind of map out the hair direction. Let me just get rid of some of this lines, it's a little bit bold. Okay, so from the nose you can see the hair goes straight up from the nose to the top of the white part, all the way along really. So that's the first bit we're going to be doing. I'm going to use just little tiny strokes just to cover that area, following where the hair direction goes. So that's my first layer done. Now I'm going to go over the top with the white just to blend it out a little bit. Again, I'm going to do that in the same strokes as the hair. I'm going to do a bit longer strokes this time because this is mainly my blending. Sorry if you can hear any noise in the background, the bin men have now decided to come round, which is typical. Normally come first thing in the morning, but because I'm filming, they've come a bit later. Fab. So now this probably looks a little bit dark considering it's going to be white, but once we darken up the rest of the hair, this will actually look really light as well. So you can see there's a little bit of a shadow at the bottom of the nose in the white hair and towards kind of the outside of them. So for that I'm going to go in with the cold grey 2, and in just really small strokes I'm going to start adding those bits in. Thinking about the hair direction again, so it kind of comes in from the side up here and goes up towards the top. I'm going to blend it out a little bit as well. So I'm actually going to leave this white area for now, and I'm going to come back to it later to add a bit more detail because I want to start getting the dark colours in now. So when I look at this rabbit, I'm going to work my way up its head, and as you can see there's kind of in the reference picture there's a lighter area here and it gets darker up towards kind of here. So I'm going to start with that light area now. And for that I'm going to go in with the cold grey 3. Well, first I'm going to get rid of that line up at the top here and that bit that I've just smudged. Fab, and I'm going to start working my way out from the nose upwards, and most of the hair for this goes straight, and then as you get towards the edges it kind of heads towards the eyeballs a little bit. So that's what we're going to be doing. So we'll use quite big long strokes for this because it's our very first layer, and we're going to add a few more on. So I'm going to start by going up the middle, taking me towards where you can see the line for the darker area, and I'm going to blend it into that a little bit as well. And as you can see from these parts, from about here on the nose, it starts to get a bit darker and go sideways, so we're going to leave that bit for now, and we're just going to come up here where it's starting to head off towards the eyeball up here. And we're going to add these bits in. And we're going to do the same on this side. We've got a really dark bit here which we're going to blend into again, but leave for the moment. And head off down by this little bit towards the eyeball again. Fab. So that was our cold grey 3. I now want to go in with the cold grey 2 and just do the same again and blend it all a little bit. I might push these bits out a tiny bit just to help with the blending when it gets to the next slightly darker patch. Bring it in here. Now I'm going to blend that whole area with the cold grey 1. And I'm just using really long free strokes for this. Again, I'm following the hair direction still, but this bit's to mainly blend. It's not really about creating any texture or anything at this point. We're just trying to blend it in. Fab, so that's kind of our base colour for this part done. Now we're going to start going in with a bit more of a hair direction. I'm starting to create that fur texture. So I want to go back in with the cold grey 3 again. And this time I'm definitely still thinking about fur direction, but I'm starting to kind of think about the individual hairs a little bit when I'm drawing it. I'm heading off towards the eyeball again for this part, thinking about that fur direction. Okay, I do actually want to blend this all back in again, I think. So I'm going to use that cold grey one again to just start blending because it's still looking a little bit grainy. So I'm still following that third direction, blending. Here we go. That's looking better. Right, so this time I want to go in with the cold grey 4. Right, so this time I'm going to go in with the cold grey 4. And we're going to look at where some of those slightly darker areas are. So around this nose part, we've got some slightly darker hairs. So I'm going to start adding those in, thinking about third direction still. We're starting to build up those dark areas. So around the eye, there's again some darker. I'll leave the darkest bits around here for next. But as you'll notice with fur particularly, most areas don't go straight from light to dark. There's kind of a transition period. So that's what we're kind of trying to do now. So although it's not like the darkest areas we're drawing, we're kind of blending it out. And there'll also be some little dark hairs amongst all the lighter ones as well, which just give it a bit more depth. So I'm blending out where it's going to get a lot darker in a minute with our top bit of our head. Blending into that a little bit now. Trying to create a little bit of a transition here. So there are actually, in this part here, there are actually some darker hairs mixed in. So I'm going to add just a few of those peppered around a little bit. This area that I'm currently doing will be a lot darker in a minute. It just sometimes helps when you're transitioning to be able to see where the darker areas are going to be. This bit around the nose is really dark, or quite dark, so I'm going to actually put some of that in now. We can darken it up in a minute. Okay, I'm actually going to go in with the Payne's Grey on some of these now, particularly this dark area here, and I'm going to go very lightly in. Just add a bit of direction to the fur, a bit of extra dimension, go in here as well. Okay, now for these dark bits here, I want to start going in with the cold grey 5 to darken it up even more. Again, looking at where that third direction is, I'm just going to get rid of the dotted line. This one's curving a bit towards the right at this point. And that goes kind of right the way up towards the ear. And around the side. Now that I've mapped that out, I'm just going to go and add a bit more pressure. Well, this is quite light still though, I'm not pushing down too much into the grain of the paper at this point. There's a little band of dark here in the middle, goes off a little bit straight and then it starts curving towards the ears again. I'm actually going to come around the eye, this part, and leave a little gap because there's a light part where the kind of eyelid is, but the hair kind of bends around the top of the eye and then goes off towards the ear again. This, and I'm going to go towards the ear, a tiny bit more. I'm going to blend this up slightly bit so it's not a straight line. Fab. So I'm going to go over that bit again to add a few more dark layers, and then we'll go over with a different colour. And then we'll work our way back towards here once we've got this kind of dark area, so don't worry that this bit doesn't look finished yet. I like to kind of map out my colours a little bit and then go back in and fully add the detail. Now I'm going to go back with Payne's Grey and I'm going to work on the really dark areas. Still following the hair direction as much as possible. If you don't, then you're just creating either something that won't look like hair in the end, or you're just creating more work for yourself later. Okay, now I'm going to go over the top with a cold grey 4 for those dark areas. And I'm kind of still thinking about third direction, but blending this now a bit with it. and get rid of some of the grey. And we'll go over it again with a really light, probably cold grey 1 after, to really try and get rid of some of that green. But this will darken it up a little bit before. Do not worry about this line, we'll go back and work that in a minute. I'm actually going to start working in some of this line now because this colour should be quite good for that. So I've got my cold grey 4. Just going to kind of follow the fur direction down a little bit. Working my weight in a little bit because down this side of the portrait it is quite light, but it's actually darker down here. Then in the middle. Same for here, it's actually a bit darker. Okay, now I'm going to go over with the cold grey 1, blend in just this part. Up here, some nice big strokes again. This is not about the detail, it's about trying to get rid of some of that graininess. You can see, which is just from the grain of the paper. And I'm going to blend down through to this part as well, because at the moment I've got quite a bold line between the two. There we go. Right, okay, so now I'm going to use some cold grey 5 very gently to just start blending this line out that I've somehow created. It's actually kind of a dark bit that protrudes a little bit near the eyes, so I'm going to just start adding that in really lightly now, because I don't want any strong lines. I'm going to go in with the cold grey 4 and try and blend out this kind of line that's on my here at the moment, which I definitely don't want. I'm going to go blend this down. I might go up a tiny bit, but I want this bit to still be a little bit darker. There we go. This whole area wants to be a tiny bit darker, so I'm going to get cold grey 3. I'll blend that in as well. Like so. And use that to blend this part here a little bit down as well. I'm only kind of focusing on this part now, so don't worry about that bit. And this bit's going to get darker, so I'm going to blend it up again. And I'm going to blend it out a little bit as well, because this part here is kind of the lightest part of the grey that we'll find on the rabbit. I'm just using the same colour again, I'll just miss this a little bit. Blend up as well. Right, I'm actually going to blend this bit along here as well with the same cold grey 3. I'm not worrying about this part, it's going to get darker. Dark comes down a little bit in the middle. Do that with this. Don't worry, the white area is just kind of sat there at the moment. We will work back into that in a bit. And the grey actually comes further down into the white. So I'm going to add that in now. Comes more like this. We'll work on that line that's just kind of left in a bit. There we go. Okay, I'm going to start on this darker bit down here, so I'm going to use the Coral Grey 6 just to work along that here. I'm not pressing very hard at all on this, I'm just doing quite a light pressure. Goes out here. And now I'm going to use Coral Grey 4 to blend that bit together. And then the Coral Grey 3 to blend it in again. And we see how we're starting to get the darker areas and the lighter areas, but it's all kind of about blending into each other. So there's no really bold lines. At the moment we've still got some, but hopefully they'll, unlike this one, will hopefully disappear once we start adding more layers. Or it should at least. Okay, I'm going to use actually a little bit of Cold Grey 6 here. Only the tiniest bit on the really darker areas. Oh, and I'm going to add it in up here as well. I'm going to actually drag this dark area down slightly over here, because at the moment I've kind of got it like almost where the brows will be, but I want it to actually come down the side of the eye a little bit as well, like it does in the reference photo. This bit around the eye is actually probably the darkest bit, so I've added a few more in there. I've got quite a dark bit that kind of comes up. Don't worry, this pencil's currently quite blunt, we're just kind of trying to find those darker areas. I really want to get rid of this line, so I'm going to try and come in a bit further with this dark area. And then I'm going to do similar on this side as well. Okay, so we've now got the dark areas nearly as dark as I'd like them, and now this light area is actually looking a little bit too light. So I'm going to go in with the cold grey too and just work on blending that area a little bit and darken it up just slightly. We don't want it much darker, but just a little bit, so it blends better. I'm also going to use this moment to kind of blend it a little bit and drag that colour up a little bit into the darker areas. Or down a little bit if you want to think about it that way. Fab, so now I'm going to use a cold grey 3 and I'm going to kind of darken this area up a little bit again, like we said. And then put a few hair strokes going through some of these areas. So I'm still thinking about hair direction, slowly building that colour and the layers. Fab, so I'm quite happy with that bit now. Don't worry, there's a dark bit, we'll sort that in a minute. And then I'm going to just pull down this dark a little bit here again, because this bit's the lightest. I'm going to just add a few little darker hairs. I'm going to add just a few little darker hairs as well. And then darken these bits. And now I'm going to add some cold grey 4 just to darken this part around the nose here, because it is actually a bit darker than the rest. Thinking about hair direction again, so it kind of goes outwards this time. Like that. And I'm going to go back over this dark bit and so kind of try and blend it up a little bit. Again, we're going to work on this white bit and blend that in a bit, so don't worry about that at the moment. Going back where the hair goes. Just really want to get rid of this line, so I'm going to drag that down a little bit. And across a little bit here. Okay, I'm going to add just a little bit of cold grey on here because I don't like how greeny this bit is still. And then I'm going to go over that area with cold grey 5. In the darkest areas, and then I will blend out with another colour in a second. It's really light at the moment. Right, I'm going to blend those bits out with a cold grey 3, just to blend it up into these cold grey areas, and to try and get rid of this tiny line. Fab. So now I'm quite happy with this bit. I am going to work on this part up here again. So I don't think I actually want it too much darker, it's just a bit greeny at the moment, so I'm going to go in with cold grey 4 and see what that does. Again, I'm going to take a few bits downwards because we've currently got a line. Okay, so now we're going to work on these slightly lighter areas up here and start to blend them into the dark. So I'm just going to get rid of those lines again. Most of them have already gone. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to go in with a cold grey 2. And I think I'm actually going to bring this down slightly because I think that's where the wispy bits are. So I'm going to bring it more along here. Okay, and I'm going to follow the direction of the fur again. So from here it's quite easy first, going up towards the top of the head. I'm not going to go off into the ear yet. Pressing on fairly hard because I know this bit's going to be dark and this is just kind of like the base layer, establishing where the hair's going. And I'm going to bring it up around here as well. And this time the hair's going kind of towards the ear and the right hand side. Doing that. There we go. I'm trying to blend that down a little bit into the darker areas as well. So there's going to be no white lines. I'm going to blend around here as well. And then I might actually come out over here. This. So you have missing areas, so I'm going to cover that. Fab. So this bit's clearly too light, but it's got a bit of a base layer down now. So now I'm going to go in with the cold grey 4. And I'm going to kind of, the lightest part's up here, so I'm going to work my way up slightly, but probably won't go right the way to the top. So I'm going to go kind of thinking about the direction of the fur again, going in small strokes. I'm not worried too much about detail at this point. It's about getting the hair direction right and starting to build that colour in the layers. This bit here is actually quite dark, so I might press on a bit harder at this point. And it goes quite dark towards the edge as well, so I'll go all the way to the top of that tiny bit there. And then up here. Okay, so I'm going to go in with the cold grey 3 now, just up to this top area that I haven't just covered with the cold grey 4. I don't want a harsh line because this bit's going to be quite fluffy. I'm actually going to add a bit more up here later, but it does get lighter on the edges up here before it goes off into the ear. As always, I'm going to blend it down slightly, so I'm not just going in a straight line. And I'm going to do this bit up here. I'm just going to try and move the tripod a little bit so hopefully you're not shaking as much. See if this helps a little bit. I'm just going to shut the door. Okay, so yeah, going towards the lighter areas at the edge. with this Cold Grey 3. Okay, now I'm going to get the Cold Grey 4 again. I'm going to start kind of blending these dark bits out a little bit so there's not such a harsh line. Looking a bit better, and now we'll do the same up here. This bit's actually quite dark, there's a light bit here, so we're going to try and leave that a bit lighter. But this area here I'm going to blend up with this Cold Grey 4. It's looking a bit better, a bit more natural, and I'm going to blend this bit out up here as well. In a second we're going to go over the top with a Cold Grey 1, just because it's quite grainy up here still, so I'm going to try and get rid of some of that graininess. Because although we want the rabbit to be fluffy, we don't really want to be able to see the grain of the paper through. So I'm just using this Cold Grey 1 to blend down. And get rid of some of the graininess. This will also help blend the different colours together a little bit as well, as you can see. Sorry about the noise, because it's such nice weather. Everybody's out in their gardens today. Probably shouldn't have picked today for filming. So just working and pressing fairly hard with this, harder than I was when I was creating the fur. Do not worry about the light bits and the things like the whiskers. We're going to go back and add them at the end using a tool called the slice tool. So I've got Cold Grey 4, going to go back over those areas, kind of blending it in. This time I'm using a lot shorter strokes, trying to create that kind of hair texture. I want some more down here because I think this area is quite dark enough. Starting to look better already, and then this area around here is quite dark, so I'm just going to darken that up slightly, and this bit up here also gets quite dark. There we go, it's actually starting to look a little bit more like a rabbit. Fab. So I'm just going to go around with a Cold Grey 2 just on this top bit here, and then we're probably going to start working around towards the eye up here. Once we've got further on the face, I probably will come back and start adding a bit more depth with the dark again, but I kind of like to get a bigger chunk of before I go back and do that. So I'm going to work on these lighter bits again with this Cold Grey 2, blending them down and just going around the edge up here. These bits, don't worry too much about them at this stage, because once we get onto this ear we'll be blending this bit in again anyway, so it's just to kind of get a feel for edge. Okay, so this part here is quite detailed. We've got a really light, or a fairly light bit that goes around almost like the eyelid, And then it gets a bit darker for the top of the eyelid, and it's got some quite dark fur going around here. So, and then that kind of goes off into the eyebrow, so we're going to do that bit next. So first I'm going to get a cold grey 1, and I'm going to very carefully pop that just around the edge of the black, and we'll go slightly across the top as well, just like that. And there for the lightest areas. Now after the light areas I'm going to go for Payne's Grey, and we're going to just put that little line in that shows kind of where the eyelid is. Now I can see it's not quite sharp enough, so I'm going to quickly sharpen that. Okay, that's better. Check I've got a new pencil sharpener in my hand, and like I said before, we're going to go in and just create the line of the eyelid with Payne's Grey. Okay. So this line up here, it turns into darker hair, so we're going to kind of fluff that up along the top. And the same along here. I'm going to actually add some of those dark bits in here to create comments like the eyebrow. And we're also going to take some dark hairs along here as well. I'm just going to, whilst I've got the Payne's Grey out, I'm going to add just a few dark bits down here, which is kind of mirrored what I've just done here. So again, around the side of the eye. Actually, these ones go all the way up kind of towards the ear as well. A bit like that. I'm going to try and blend these in so they're not quite so eyebrowy. Actually some darker bits here as well. Add those in. And these get darker towards the edge, but that'll be added kind of when we go into the ear. So this bit's quite dark. And actually, just add on to black. Right, we're going to mix, not mix, we're going to blend that bit now with some cold grey 4. Don't worry if it looks a bit messy at this point, that is fine. Okay, I'm going to get a cold grey 3 now, and I'm actually going to blend or colour in some of this top eyelid because it's not as light as this side. There we go. And I'm actually going to quickly blend this bit with that whilst I'm here. And now I'm going to go back in with the Payne's Grey and just darken up this bit again. and down here, and start to add some of the dark. Comes out of the eye, well not out of the eye, next to the eye, the dark part. And blend that again with Cold Grey 4. Blend that out. And then I'm going to use Cold Grey 3 just to do that a little bit in the middle there, because that bit is not as dark. Oops, that was Cold Grey 2, so I'm going to go in with the Cold Grey 3, because it's not as light as that. There we go. Okay, now before I go back in with the dark bit here, I'm going to actually just carry on with the Cold Grey 3 to kind of the edge of the head. So the hair here, as you can see, goes kind of sideways, and then just before the edge it does bend down slightly. And on this part, just go straight because it will turn into the ear fluff in a bit. And I'm going to follow this bit around as well here, which will have to be darkened up in a bit. So again, it's going straight, and then just before the edge it's going to turn down a bit. Only slightly though. Fab. Actually, while I'm doing that, I'm just going to quickly follow that bit right to the edge. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to add Cold Grey 4, just following this line here. Still thinking about the hair direction. I'm going to follow the darkest bits. A bit up here. I'm going to try and blend these dark bits out a tiny bit. Darker in the middle, and I'm going to go in with the Cold Grey 2 here, almost blending with this bit. Come out that hair direction. We'll go around and make it look a little bit fuzzier after, because it's quite a fluffy bunny. Fab. So now we're going to add some of the dark bits back in. So I'm going to get a Cold Grey 6, and we're going to just start on these really dark bits here. Oops. Try and blend them out. Your eye will probably start to look like the eyeball itself will start to look a little bit less defined at this point. That's fine, because we'll be going back over that in a minute. Blend some of that dark bits in here, because this bit will get darker. Just going to add the lightest bit of Cold Grey 6 here, because it's not actually that dark, but I just want a bit more definition. There we go. And now I think I'm currently too light here, so we are going to just darken that up a little bit with a Cold Grey 4. Following the hair direction again. There we go, look, it blends in much better now. And I think I'm actually going to go pretty much out to the edge with this. Just quite lightly though. Blending into the dark bits again. Fab. So now I'm going to start adding those dark parts again. So I'm going to go with Payne's Grey. And we're going to go from the eye, this tiny bit here that I've missed somehow. And I'm going to make this bit a bit darker. Go right the way down. And I do want to make a bit under the eye just a little bit darker as well. You see how it's starting to already add a bit more dimension. So I'm going to get the Cold Grey 5 and I just want to make this tiny bit here a little bit darker. Blend in with a few bits. Perfect. And now I'm just going to use the Cold Grey 1 to just blend this bit out because it's still looking a little bit grainy. Perfect. Now, because I've done that, I am just going to add a tiny bit more dark back in here and then we're going to move on. So I'm going to use the Cold Grey 5 and I just want it to get a little bit, actually now I'm going to use Cold Grey 6, pressing lightly, but I just want this bit to get a bit darker. Perfect. And now I'm going to go in with the Cold Grey 5. So that same kind of area. Not pressing hard at all this time. It's kind of almost giving it a bit of a glaze. I'm going to blend this bit a bit so it's not so much of a contrast. In. And just the tiniest bit of Cold Grey 4 here. There we go. Okay, now this part here is when we really need to concentrate on hair direction because it kind of starts going towards the eye and then as you can see from the reference picture it kind of bends at that point to go around almost the cheeks. This is when you're going to get those really kind of chubby cheeks that rabbits are known for. There's actually quite a lot of colour variation here as well. So first I'm going to focus on this tiny bit here, the eye, and then we'll take on the rest after. So I'm going to go in with a Cold Grey 3 for this. And this part of the hair direction is basically going straight at the eye. So it kind of makes a bit of a V shape, a bit of a triangle. And then carries on past these areas because there is a lot of change in the hair direction. You need to make sure you're constantly checking back between your reference picture because once you've done a few layers it's kind of hard to change the fair direction you've drawn, and rubbing it out will help but it's not always easy to get rid of all the colours, especially if you've been pressing on hard. Okay, I'm going to have a Cold Grey 4 and lightly just adding that. Cold Grey 1 again, just to blend. And And then I think we're going with Cold Grey 5 and just... This bit is quite dark here from last time, so I'm just going to blend that out a little bit. Okay, so I'll probably come back to that a little bit in a second when I've got a bit more. So for this part, I'm going to start back from the nose again and start working our way out. The hair direction is pretty straight at this point before it goes downwards at here. So I'm going to start from the nose again and probably work up this way. Everyone's out in their gardens today. Okay, I've got a cold grey. Actually, no, I'm going to get a different colour. I'm going to have cold grey 2. And we're going to just be working out from there. Finally, this is when you need to get your rubber out again and get rid of all these little bits. I still want to be able to see where they are, but not as were last time. So still with a cold grey 3, pressing on lightly, and I'm going to literally just map out the hair to start with, what direction it goes in.